Testimonies from the Abyss True Horror Confessions. They say confession is good for the soul. But what if the soul you're confessing to isn't listening out of forgiveness? What if it listens to feed? Welcome to Testimonies from the Abyss, a series unlike anything you've ever heard. These are not just ghost stories. They are raw, terrifying first-hand accounts of people who claim they've seen, heard, or felt something that broke reality itself. Told in whispers, in last breaths, in the moments before the screaming begins. Each episode of Testimonies from the Abyss explores one confession, a voicemail left by a trembling mother at 3:33 a.m., a lost journal found buried in the floorboards of a condemned hospital, or a grainy recording recovered from an asylum that doesn't appear on any map. These are true horror confessions, not always verified, not always solvable, but always disturbing. They come from nurses, from priests, from children. Some even come from the missing, and some come from voices that can't be traced to any living person. The testimonies reveal patterns. The same name whispered in different languages. A shadow that appears in photos taken years apart, continents apart. A dream about a door with no handle. Some confessions claim their nightmares bled into the real world. Others claim the horror began after they stopped dreaming entirely. And more than one speaker ends their story the same way. If you're hearing this, you're part of it now. These aren't just stories. They are invitations, warnings, maps of a place no one should ever visit, but somehow always ends up back in. We call it the Abyss. It has no form, no origin, only one rule. If you speak to it, it speaks back. You might think listening is safe, that it's all just entertainment. But the people who left these confessions, they all thought that too. So listen closely, because some voices only speak once, and once you've heard them, they never leave. This is Testimonies from the Abyss, true horror confessions. And tonight, we begin. The voice under the bed. Testimony 1. Recovered from a cassette tape left inside a hollowed-out Bible. Found in room 12 of the Sable Pines Children's Hospice, a building condemned since 1994. The tape was unmarked. The voice on it belonged to a girl. Age unknown. What follows is her confession. My name is Lacey. I think I'm 10. I don't know anymore. The nurses don't come in here at night. They say it's because of germs. But I know the truth. They don't want to hear him. At first, her story seems like a child's imagination. Something about a voice. A friendly one. One that started talking to her from under the bed. He was nice at first. He asked what my favorite color was. Said he liked the way my feet dangled. For the first 3 nights, Lacey said the voice would hum lullabies. Each one unfamiliar. Each one in a language she didn't know, but said she understood anyway. Then he asked if I wanted to get better. I said yes. I wanted my hair back. He said, it'll cost something small, like a fingernail. According to hospice records, Lacey was never visited by family. She had no personal belongings. But when investigators found the room, there was one thing left under her bed, a child's tooth, wrapped in cloth, with something written in blood. I gave him more things, little things, hair, skin, a picture I drew. But then he said he was still hungry, that he wanted the noise behind my eyes. I don't know what that means, but it hurts to think. The rest of the tape plays backward, except for one clear whisper at the end. She's in here now, and she won't stop blinking. Room 12 has since been sealed. Construction crews report their tools go missing when left unattended. One worker claimed he heard a little girl laugh from inside the floor. Her medical file vanished during the hospice's shutdown. There's no patient named Lacey in any national database. And yet, 5 other confessions reference the girl who fed the floor. This was Testimony 1, the voice under the bed. If you hear humming tonight, don't hum back. Some things don't want to sing. They want to feed. More noise. More eyes. Testimony 2, The door that wasn't there yesterday. Testimony, too, was submitted anonymously. No name, no return address. Just a flash drive wrapped in yellow gauze, taped to the bottom of a fire extinguisher in a shuttered hotel. The voice on the recording belongs to a man, mid-30s, calm, but something in his tone suggests he's already seen too much. This is the 5th time I've recorded this. Every time I try to say what happened, it slips away, like a dream when you wake up. But it's not a dream. I know because the bruises stay. The man had been staying in a small-town motel, traveling for work. He checked into room 304. But on his second night, he noticed something strange. There was a door across the hall, room 306. Only, it wasn't there yesterday. There was just a wall there, a painting of a horse. The door looked older than the others. Dull brass knob, no peephole, just old wood, and scratched into the center was my name. He says he didn't open the door, not the first night, but at exactly 3:07 a.m., it opened by itself, not wide, just a few inches, enough to see movement in the dark. He tried to call the front desk. The phone had no dial tone, and his cell displayed only one message: "You already checked out." I looked through the crack, and I saw myself, sitting at a desk, writing. But when I leaned closer, the me in the room stopped and stared right back at me, except his eyes weren't mine. He woke up the next morning in his car, parked in front of a gas station, 92 miles away from a motel. The receipt in his wallet showed checkout at 10:32 a.m., but the manager said room 304 had been locked from the inside for years. It was under maintenance. No key had been issued. No guest had stayed there since the fire. I checked my laptop when I got home. There was a file open, a draft email. The subject line said, "Don't trust your reflection after midnight." But I never wrote it, and it was signed with my name, only backwards. The motel was demolished 6 months later. No trace of room 306 was ever found. In fact, there was never a third floor. The blueprints end at room 204. Some doors are meant to be opened. Others were never meant to be seen. And some already know your name. Faint knock echoes once in background. Final whisper on tape. It's open now. Testimony 3. The nurse who treated the patient that didn't exist. Testimony 3 was submitted in the form of a sealed envelope, found wedged between the pages of a patient chart in a locked filing cabinet. The hospital had been closed for over a decade. No return address. No signature. Just one line on the outside, written in surgical marker. She wouldn't stop smiling, even after she died. I've been a nurse for 19 years. I've seen people die. I've heard death rattles. I've had to unzip more body bags than I care to count. But this wasn't death. It was something else wearing death's face. She worked a night shift in the subacute wing of St. Audelia Hospital, a wing reserved for patients in comas, life support, and post-neurological trauma. The place was quiet, dead quiet, until one night she saw a name appear on the hallway roster monitor. Room 209, patient Myra Finch. There was only one problem. Room 209 had no patient. It was sealed for asbestos testing. Had been for months. I thought it was a system glitch. But when I walked past room 209, the light under the door was on, and I heard breathing. Shallow, raspy, like someone had been asleep for too long. She opened the door. Slowly. Inside, the bed was occupied. Monitors beeped steadily. The scent of antiseptic and roses hung in the air. But the hospital hadn't had real flowers since the ban 5 years prior. And on the chart at the foot of the bed was her own handwriting. But she swears she never wrote it. She was lying there, a woman, mid-30s maybe, eyes open, but not blinking. She just stared at me, and she was smiling, not in a normal way. Her lips were cut, but she was still smiling. I asked her name. She said, "You already gave it to me." Security reviewed the footage the next morning. Camera shows a nurse entering room 209 at 3:04 a.m. The door closes. The footage skips. The nurse exits the room at 3:33 a.m., visibly shaken. But the room was empty the entire time. The next shift said I must have fallen asleep somewhere. They said I was imagining it, but then I checked the wound log. Someone logged a medication error under my name. For patient Myra Finch. The note said, "Smiling is a side effect. Keep increasing the dose." She quit 3 days later, but she keeps seeing the woman in crowds, in reflections, always just before sleep, still smiling, still waiting, still wearing her hospital bracelet. Every profession has its ghosts, but sometimes the ghost clocks in too. And if you ever see a patient that isn't supposed to be there, don't treat them, don't speak to them, and whatever you do, don't write their name. You signed it in blood. I just smiled. Testimony 4. The man who dug his own grave and what he found below it. Testimony 4 was found carved onto the inside of a wooden coffin lid. The wood had been unearthed during a flash flood in a cemetery where no grave markers remain. Inside the coffin was a body, perfectly preserved, with no eyes and no hands. There was no name on the coffin, but the carvings were made with something sharp, possibly teeth. Male voice begins slow, dry, southern accent, like he's already halfway buried. I don't know why I started digging. I woke up one morning with the urge. Not a thought, not an idea, a need. My hands just knew. The man lived alone. A remote house, just outside a forgotten mining town. He wasn't a grave digger. He wasn't even religious. But something called him to the field behind his house. Man's voice continues. It took me 5 days. The ground was soft, too soft, like something had already been moved out of the way. I didn't sleep much. Every night, I'd dream of a creaking and a heartbeat that wasn't mine. On the 6th day, he found the lid, a coffin, old, no nails, just wood, and a strange black stain that bubbled when touched. Inside was nothing except for a note, folded and crisp despite the wet soil. It read, "You're early. We're not done watching yet." His voice again, lower, more frantic now. I didn't put the note there, but it was in my handwriting. Exactly how I write the letter G. And I don't remember coming back inside, but my boots were muddy, and there was dirt under my fingernails. He started receiving packages, unmarked boxes. Inside, a single fingernail, a photograph of him digging, taken from behind, a cassette tape labeled day 13, even though it was only day 7. Man's voice again. The tape had a voice. Mine, but older. It said, "Don't dig any deeper. You'll find what found you." The grave was empty until it wasn't. A week later, neighbors reported seeing a man, shirtless, covered in mud, standing in the field at dawn, staring into the hole. Then he walked in and never came out. His voice again, but distorted, warped, distant. There's a ladder now, and a light. I can see a door. It's breathing. The dirt is warm. 3 months later, a child playing in the field found the coffin washed up from the earth. No one remembers a man living there. Property records show the house was abandoned in 1984. The child's parents said she came home holding a nail. In her handwriting, barely formed, were the words, "Let me finish what he started." Some people bury their past. Others dig it up. But when the earth gives something back, don't look inside. Not every grave is meant for the dead. Some are made for witnesses. And in the dirt beneath our feet, it waits to be named. Keep digging. Testimony 5. The woman who was buried twice and woke up screaming both times. Testimony 5 came from an obituary. It was printed in the local newspaper. Twice. Same name, same photo, same date of death. 10 years apart. The name was Catherine Eloise Ward. But here's the part no one could explain. The second obituary included a quote from her. "You people keep putting me back, but I never asked to come up. I don't want to be here, but I don't want to be down there either." Catherine was buried for the first time in 1994. Cardiac arrest, closed casket, rural cemetery. Nothing unusual. Until 2004, when the groundskeeper reported hearing screams from the plot where Catherine lay. They exhumed the coffin, cracked open the lid. Inside, her eyes were open, and her hands were raw from clawing. It wasn't death. It was waiting. There were others down there with me, but they weren't dead. They were remembering. Catherine was hospitalized. No brain damage. Vital signs stable. She had no pulse for 10 years. No respiration. No signs of decay. Medical journals called it a prolonged hypometabolic trance. But even the doctors didn't believe that, because she spoke in languages no one could trace, and she refused to sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I go back to the tunnels, to the room made of teeth. They say I was chosen, that I was buried to keep it sealed. They kept her under sedation, until the night the hospital's cameras went black for exactly 7 minutes. When power returned, Catherine was gone. Her bed, empty. Window, sealed. Security doors, untouched. All that remained was a note, burned into her bedsheet. Not done yet. 9 days later, she was found walking naked through the cemetery. Same plot, same grave. And when they tried to speak to her, she screamed just one word, over and over. "Don't dig, don't dig, don't dig. You were never supposed to hear us. You were never supposed to read these. Confessions keep it alive. Stop listening, before the dirt learns your name too." They buried her again, by court order. But 3 days later, the grave was empty. Again, the soil undisturbed. The coffin still sealed. But Catherine was gone. And on the headstone, freshly etched, "One more time." Some people die once. Some die twice. But others are borrowed. And what comes back doesn't always come back alone. She's behind your eyes now. Studio microphone testimony 6. The boy who never slept and what his eyes finally saw. Testimony 6 was never spoken. It was found in a composition notebook, crayon scrawled pages, torn and smeared, left behind after the disappearance of a 6-year-old boy named Elias Drew. The final page contained only one sentence, written over and over. "It sleeps when I don't." Elias Drew hadn't slept in 22 days. Doctors call it a rare case of fatal childhood insomnia, a condition almost unheard of, especially in someone so young. He wasn't tired. He wasn't wired. He was just watching. He kept staring at the corners. Wouldn't blink. Said he didn't want to close his eyes because that's when it moves. At first, they thought it was night terrors. Then it got worse. Elias began drawing things, intricate, detailed shapes, far beyond his age level. Each one showed a figure. A tall, jointless thing. A head like a crack in glass. Fingers with too many bends. In every drawing, it stood outside his window. He said it was called the middle thing. Not upstairs, not downstairs, just the place in between where people forget to look. The pediatric neurologist reviewed Elias's scans. She said the boy's brain was fully active in both hemispheres, even during what should have been REM cycles. No sleep, no rest, just a constant flood of activity. He wasn't deteriorating. He was changing. I see it even when I blink now. It blinks back. It doesn't like the dark anymore. It wants lights on now, so it can watch better. On the 23rd day, Elias vanished. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Window locked from inside. Door untouched. Just one thing was different. His mattress was soaked in tears. But the doctors confirmed Elias hadn't cried once during the entire ordeal. The mother said she heard him laughing that night. Said it didn't sound like him. Said it sounded older. The final item found in the room was a note pressed against the inside of the window, drawn in fog, with a fingertip, you're turned to blink. The longer you stay awake, the clearer it becomes. New moon, the pattern deepens. 6 testimonies. 6 impossible stories. But already, things begin to repeat. The 3:33 a.m. timestamp. The mention of borrowed names. The presence of watchers, listeners, diggers, and smilers. There is something coiling beneath all these stories. Something that does not sleep and does not forget. Studio microphone testimony 7. The priest who buried the wrong heart and heard it beating again. Testimony 7 was extracted from a confession booth recording, recovered during demolition of St. Mary's Cathedral, a church deconsecrated in 1971 after an unspecified scandal. The priest who left the tape is never identified, but his voice is unmistakably broken. I have served the church for 41 years. I've buried sinners, blessed infants, heard things no man should repeat, but never, never did I think I'd be asked to bury a heart. The story begins with a funeral, a small casket, closed, no name on the plaque. The priest was told only this. It belonged to someone important, someone forgotten, buried under the altar. It was wrapped in linen, still warm, still wet. I didn't ask questions. I just obeyed. That was my first sin. That night, the priest reported hearing music beneath the floorboards. Not hymns, something older, low humming mixed with wet breaths. He thought it was grief until the dreams began. I saw a face with no skin, not bone, just more muscle, smiling, and it whispered I wasn't finished beating. Then I'd wake up to the sound of scratching. Under the altar, days later, the cathedral's walls began to sweat. Not moisture, blood. It came from the stone itself. And always at 3:33 a.m., the statues turned, all of them, toward the pulpit. And the crucifix, it's upside down, but it's nailed that way. It wasn't before. They said it was sacred, but it wasn't holy. That heart was never human. It beat like it remembered things that want to be born again. The priest attempted to remove it, but when he lifted the altar stone, the linen was gone, and in its place was a new casket, smaller, still beating. I buried it again, deeper this time, but I know it's growing. I hear it every night, and sometimes I see the congregation return. No skin, no mouths, just rib cages, and all of them humming the same note. St. Mary's was sealed after a sinkhole swallowed the main nave. No bodies were recovered, but one rescue worker reported hearing a heartbeat deep in the rubble. The report was dismissed, but when he got home, there was blood under his fingernails. We never stopped praying. You just stop listening. Threads are converging. You may have noticed by now. 3:33 a.m. again. Bleeding stone. Whispers of something unfinished. Waiting, digging, blinking, smiling. Each testimony is separate, yet each offers a piece, a name, a heartbeat, a doorway, an eye, a room, a hunger. The abyss isn't coming. It's already here.